We are back for what is this, week 11? I don't know how we get to November of every single college football season. We freak out realizing where is the time gone, but it has gone. This is the Rice Football Blue and Gray preview show. I'm your host, Matthew Bartlett, joined as always with JP Heath, voice of the Owls, here to talk some Roadrunners. We've decided most creative college football team name in Texas, I believe. We could get creative. There's you. Oh, you're muted. If we get down to the non-FBS level, I know we got some good ones, but
I don't know if you knew this. I'm the former voice of the Angelina College Roadrunners.
I did not know the Angelina
Oh,
College was the Roadrunners. We have
it is.
multiple Roadrunners.
It
That
is.
seems impossible.
And I think there's another high school mascot out there. But anyway, our great guest who is giving us his time is in the on deck circle.
Perfect. Yes, let's bring him in. We got Andy Everett, voice of the UTSA Roadrunners, to join us this week. Help us get familiar with the team out in San Antonio. Thanks for joining us, Andy.
You're welcome. How are you guys doing?
Good. Thanks, man.
So far, so good. So what's the temperature on UTSA now that we've got to November? We should just grow to expect this from Jeff Traylor and co. That by the time we get to the end of the season, they'll be running for another conference championship and have those high aspirations intact.
Yeah, the remarkable thing about UTSA is that they've only lost 3 conference games in the Jeff Traylor era, and their streak, I think, right now is second to only Georgia and Michigan in the conferences that they've been in. Obviously, this is the first year for all of us in the American, but when they get to November, they get very, very serious. And this team was really beat up in September, even before the season began, and that was one of the reasons why they had the slow start. Army's defense was pretty good, and Houston, they just weren't 100% ready. And of course, they probably weren't going to beat Tennessee anyway. But since then, they've really started to play better each and every week.
What's your favorite Frank Harris story? You've been around there. I don't know if he's been there longer or you have, but you have a favorite Frank Harris story on air or off?
Well, I think Frank doesn't give you a whole lot of personality when you're doing interviews and stuff with him. But I'll tell you a quick story. Earlier this year, I played in a golf tournament, and I made a hole-in-one in that golf tournament. And then a couple of weeks ago, Frank played in a similar golf tournament with apparently the same people that I did, where he learned that I made a hole-in-one on the hole that he was playing at the time. And so as soon as he sees me the next day, he starts asking about it, what I hit, that kind of stuff, and all that. So you develop a relationship with these guys because they see you all the time, and he's been seeing me for 7 years, and I've done all 13 now of the UTSA seasons. But he's a very observant person. Nothing kind of gets out of his eyesight. He sees everything, even though you don't know that he's seeing things. He'll surprise you with stuff. But to me, what I like the most about Frank on the field is that there's no scenario where he doesn't think he's going to win until there's zeros on the clock. And when you saw that last year several times, a minute to go in the game, no timeouts, down 3, down 6, whatever, we're going to go score and win the game. And he does that as well as any player I've ever seen. His teammates have the utmost confidence in him. And in the almost 13-year history of the program, there's no player that's ever had the impact that he has had so far or may have in the near future.
Yeah, I want to ask you about some of those teammates, because that's the remarkable thing about Frank Harris and just having that dude at quarterback is it almost doesn't matter who else is on the field. They've gone through a lot of big time playmakers, and they just find somebody else who else kind of has stepped up, at those skill positions to kind of help him.
Well, the best surprise of the year has been Tyke Ogle-Kellogg. He's been here for a long time too. I think this is his 5th or 6th year. He was part of the Frank Wilson recruiting class back, I think, in 2018 or 19. And Tyke's never had an issue of being a great athlete and doing things on the field. He's just been very immature over his career, and he'll be the first to tell you that he was coming from Tennessee. He came to San Antonio. He wanted to be away from home, and he just had never done it before. And so the little things off the field are the things that he's improved on. And that has made him a more reliable wide receiver. And especially in the absence of JT Clark this year, who hasn't basically played 2 snaps, but they were just out there to put him on the field. And he won't play anymore this year. He still has some issues with his knee. To be able to not necessarily replace a guy like that, but to give you solid minutes in his place or solid plays in his place has been huge. And then the young receiving core, Willie McCoy and Devin McEwen in particular, have also stepped in and done a great job at that wide receiver spot.
On the running game side of things, you guys have had some great backs in the past, and tell us about the running game this year, led by the tiny hole in the wall town of San Augustine, Barnes. There seems like he's been the lead back there.
Yeah, Kavorian's been fantastic. And last year when we were at Rice, he was the only one left. Had he gotten hurt, we were going to be playing with scout team running backs or walk-ons. Just one injury after another last year prevented that from happening. And UTSA made that a point of emphasis to recruit a bunch of running backs. And some we haven't even seen play yet. But you'll see Kavorian Barnes, you'll see Rocco Griffin, and you'll see Robert Henry. And all three of those guys kind of complement one another. I think Kavorian's got the speed and the size. I think Rocco's a bigger size back, but he's not slow. And then Henry's going to fly like the wind and especially hit holes and make moves in the secondary. That's been the way Jeff has always wanted to play with 3 backs. Injuries have prevented that. And you go back to 2 years ago, and we had Sincere McCormick carrying the ball 35 times a game because there was no one else. And fortunately, he was durable enough to do that. But they would really like to have 3 guys out there. And we saw last week Kavorian have a big first half, I think 120 yards rushing. And then he didn't do much in the second half, but Rocco Griffin and Robert Henry did. So you're going to see all 3, and they're very confident that all 3 can get the job done.
And when it comes to big picture on this offense, because I think something, and I know we talked about this with Jeff Traylor at AAC Media Days, the circling of offensive coordinators, and part of the bad things when you have so much success at this Group of 5 level is you tend to lose some of your guys and have to replace them. What have you kind of noticed, this run around with what the offense looks like in ways that is different, maybe changed a little bit from different iterations in the past? Obviously, you still got Frank, but you got a couple new pieces and a new guy at the helm.
Well, most importantly, this is the Jeff Traylor offense, and it's the one he probably ran at Gilmer, and he was probably one he ran at SMU and Arkansas when he was in charge of the offense. But you had Barry Lunny Jr. come in a few years ago, and he was the guy for the first couple of years, and then he got more money to be the offensive coordinator at Illinois, and they just promoted the quarterbacks coach, Will Stein, and then last year he goes to Oregon after the season was over, and then now you have you have Justin Burke, who was the quarterbacks coach last year. So it's just a progression. It's the exact same offense they've always run. Yeah, there's some wrinkles added to it. Each coach has his own personality. It's a different voice that's telling the guys on the sideline what play to run. But other than that, it's the same plays. And Frank in particular knows this playbook like it's, anything he's ever read. So the plays aren't anything different. It's just different guys calling them and in the order of which they're called.
Obviously, with the consistency you guys have had, and this year, is the line held up pretty good? The guys that deserve most of the credit but don't get a lot of the attention, how's the line been on the offensive side?
Well, they've been without their right tackle, Mekhi Hart, who they consider to be the most important player on that offensive line. He got hurt in the 7th play of the Houston game in game 1. They took Ernesto Alvarez, who was the center, moved him to right tackle and brought in Luke Lopez to play center, who had done it in practice and had some reps with the ones, but had really never had a varsity start. And he's been fantastic. Now, he also has veterans around him. At left guard, he's got Terrell Haynes, who's been here five years. At left tackle, he's got Vinley Tatafu, who's played some guard, but his natural position is tackle. So it's not like Luke has to make all the offensive line calls. He's got some help on that line. And pretty much for the last 5 or 6 games, that group of 5 right there has been the ones that have gotten the job done. And there's a couple others that they'll throw in there for a handful of plays, but a lot of offensive coaches really like to have a solid 5 guys that go most, if not all, the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to flip over to the other side of the ball and ask you a little bit about the defense because, as I was casually watching and following the beginning of the UTS season, of course, we knew about the injuries to Frank and then kind of working through it on the offense. But the defense just kind of seemed to be starting a little bit slow as well. And I go look up stat sheets this week, and they're near the top of the conference in sacks, near the top of the conference in tackles for loss, havoc rate. This defense is kind of really come alive. Have you kind of seen a progression too of them kind of catching fire late?
Well, I thought they played really good defense in the Houston and Texas State games. The offense did not play well, and that's why they lost the Houston game. And Frank got hurt in the second half of Texas State and didn't get to add any points to their total, and the defense did well there. Army threw an offense at them that they'd never seen. They basically looked at every Army film they'd ever seen, and Army just had a completely different offense against UTSA and the way they blocked and the way that they schemed. And then you had to play Tennessee, and Joe Milton's a pretty good quarterback, and they've got guys that are going to be in the NFL pretty soon. But since the conference season began, the defense has been great. The best player on that defense is Trey Moore. He's an NFL player whenever he wants to be. I think he's been out of school now 3 years. So if he wants to go pro after this year, and I'm sure they'll evaluate that, he can do that. But he could also come back. He leads the nation in sacks. One of the we were lucky a few years ago to have Marcus Davenport basically play that same position, that edge rusher, kind of a hybrid linebacker role that can drop into coverage or rush the passer. And Trey Moore isn't as imposing of a person as Marcus Davenport was, but I think he's just as effective. And I'm sure the NFL scouts can't wait to get an opportunity to pick him. And the defensive line, there's 9 guys that they rotate on the defensive line. All 9 of those guys there's not a whole lot of drop off. Now there's 2 or 3 because of their size. The NFL is salivating over as well, but they all play really well when they're in the game, even though some of them may not be NFL picks.
How's the depth of the secondary been? You guys in the past have always been solid everywhere, but what about the guys kind of in the back and then on the corners there? Rice, as you know, has some pretty talented receivers that they'll be going against.
Yeah, that was always a concern, but they've got depth now there too. You'll probably see 8 defensive backs in the game on Saturday. You've got Nick Troy Fortune at one of the corner spots, and then a combination of DeJuan Griffin and a couple others that'll play the other side of that corner. Rashad Wisdom leads the defense. He's kind of the I guess captain of the defense, if you will. He's been here forever too at safety. Ken Robinson's a converted corner that will play safety, and they're starting to work in some of the young guys. Cyrus Dumas is a guy that transferred in, and he didn't play until about 3 weeks ago because he was coming back from injury. So they got some depth there too. That defense right now is pretty solid.
You always the running joke used to be Hunter Renfrow is the oldest college player that has been here forever. I think Rashad Wisdom and Frank Harris are going to be my new replacements. Of these guys played 14 years.
Well, together they have, but
That's
almost.
true.
Yeah. Well, and Frank, Frank, they say that he's a 7th-year senior, but he's really only played about 4.5 seasons worth of games. He did not play in 17 when he got here, coming off of an ACL injury from his high school career. He hurt it again and didn't play in 18. Played a little bit in 19, but he was hurt a lot in 19, so there was a bunch of quarterbacks there. Then he was the starter in 2020 in Jeff's first year, but didn't get a lot of, didn't play a whole season, maybe played a total of 5 or 6 games. And then starting in 2021 and 22, he's been able to do everything. And then he gets the COVID year over, but he's missed 2.5 games this year. He's probably, I don't know the exact number, but I'm guessing when his career's over, it'll be around 50 games, which is just a little bit more than 4 years worth of playing. And Rashad's actually a couple years younger than Frank. He came in later, and they played at rival high schools together, just down the road from one another. But they've been best friends since they were 6 years old, or 6 and 8.
What I'm hearing is Frank has like a good 2 or 3 years left if he really wants to stretch this out.
I don't think Frank has more than about 3 or 4 games left. If you see him walking around, you can tell that he's going to be old quick. And I think he's ready to go out in the workforce. I thought he was ready this time last year. I thought he was done. And 2 or 3 things happened. One, the fans in the stadium on the championship game against North Texas started chanting "one more year," and Jeff Traylor led that chant, and then they lost the bowl game. And that's one thing on his resume that he still hasn't done. UTSA has still not won a bowl game. They've been to 3 in a row, and they're bowl eligible now. So checking that off the bucket list is still very high on Frank's list.
Finally, Andy, thank you so much for joining us. Always love chatting with you. Kind of in the sense I asked you for a Frank Harris story, a Jeff Traylor story, because out of opposing coaches, and this is biased from my East Texas past, but knowing kind of the area where Jeff Traylor grew up in and just the things he's done, he's taken on this mythical kind of Texas icon, just rising up the ranks. And you guys did a great job in kind of swatting off suitors to keep him there. Speak to the man he is and just his importance, not just to the program, but the Alamo City there, because I still don't think it gets enough attention, the job he does in the Lone Star State as far as what he has done. It's been impeccable.
Yeah, he's got the best reputation. There's nobody in the high school ranks in Texas that doesn't know who he is. And he's realistic. He'll tell his team, I don't think you're going to win this game if unless you play perfect. And he'll also tell his team, if you just take care of business, we'll win such game relatively easy, but you've got to go in there with the mindset that we're going to play our brand of football and not let the other team hang around, regardless of who the opponent is. He's brutally honest with his players, and he turns the team over to the players. It's a player's game. If you look at Popovich with the Spurs and Belichick with New England and all the great coaches, they never won when they had bad players. They only won when they had great players. And Jeff will be the first to tell you, you get great players, you teach them what to do, and then you let them go do what they're doing. And he doesn't micromanage them. He lets them micromanage each other. He lets his assistant coaches coach. He rarely ever steps in on the offensive coordinator play calls. Sometimes he does, but not much. And he surrounds himself with people that he really trusts, including his players. And the single digit numbers, you have to earn those. It's a vote by the team and by the coaches. So 0 through 9 on that roster, they got those numbers because they earned them from their peers and their coaches. I think he has not only brought a winning attitude to this school, but he's also helped them with fundraising. He's got the business community excited about being around him. And he's told me many times, I don't necessarily need to go to a Power 5 school to complete my legacy. I just want to go somewhere and be somewhere where I can win. And as long as he thinks he can win at UTSA, I think that's some place that he can hang his hat for a long time. He really likes it here. His family likes it here. And it's been said that I get the best hour of the week on radio because I get to talk to him tonight for another radio show. And I'll just have to, lead him along a path, and he'll do the show the rest of the way. So, great guy, great coach, and I hope he stays here for a long time.
Hey, thank you, sir. Matthew, anything else for Andy, or are you good?
No, I appreciate your time, and looking forward to hopefully a fun game this weekend.
We'll see you on Saturday.
Most important question, Andy. Any good food picks for our fans coming in, or more selfishly, our Portly broadcast crew coming in Saturday morning breakfast? I've got hoops Friday night, and then any good breakfast, lunch spots, San Antonio you recommend? Being the great sales guy that you are, sell me on a place or two.
Well, it depends on where you are and how far you want to drive. But if you find a place, I have never found a place in San Antonio that does not have good Mexican food. So you can take your pick from there. On the way out of town, there's plenty of choices downtown, from Morton Steakhouse to a hole-in-the-wall Mexican food place that I'm sure you'll find and enjoy.
Good deal. We'll get that 18 in before your talk show here this afternoon, okay?
All right, we'll work on that.
See you, brother. Thank you, man.
Thanks.
That's the great Andy Everett. Long time. There's been only one voice of the UTSA Roadrunners, and it's Andy Everett. I always said he was the top golfer across CUSA, and I'm sure that still stands across the AAC too. But
that subtle hole-in-one reference that he put in there.
His first one, I remember him posting that right after. But I thought it's like a Chuck Norris story with Frank Harris. I thought it was going to be like Frank said, "What? I've got 4 of them," But anyway,
I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. Where do you want to go from here, good man?
I mean, first thought is we talked a little bit. I want to talk a little bit Texas high school football, and I want to talk a little bit Jeff Traylor and his going on. I made sure this week that I talked with John Kay after practice and asked him about his relationship with the head man at UTSA and any love lost there. And I can assure you that just something that it's always a part that goes into building these rosters, right? There's a lot of Texas high school football talent, but you get K coming from North Shore and a trailer of at Gilmer. I don't know. I don't even know if that's much worth of anything to go off, but I just thought it was as if you needed another reason that you wanted to win this game. I think having those high school connections will go a long way.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's like depending on what he does, I know Texas Tech made him a very strong offer. Then UTSA upped up and paid him whatever he's making, silly money for an old Jacksonville, Texas native. But what he's done all across his coaching career has simply won. And he's a winner. He gets it, like you heard. I love getting that kind of inside scoop there. We did get the inside scoop there. He just wins, and he has that effect on people. And in our great state of Texas, having those connections, you can see how he built that foundation. He's a born leader, and this is a very formidable UTSA team coming up here.
Yeah, I will say this: I will not miss the day as someone who covers Rice that Frank Harris and Jeff Traylor are no longer in San Antonio. I have a strong suspicion that might come next season. What? Fingers crossed.
Yeah, utmost respect for both of them. But like Andy said, he gets the right players, and what Frank Wilson's gone through, man, it's a testament to his grittiness and being a leader on the field too.
Yeah, let's transition a little bit. Let's close it. Let's talk about Rice a little bit in this game. And I think we've danced around it a little bit the past couple weeks, talking about, how nice it would be to win these games and how you think the team is capable. But can we plant the flag here and say, is this a must-win game for Rice? Do you believe in the phrase must win, or is that the most overhyped cliche in sports?
Well, if you're in a playoff scenario, there's definite must wins. Like you get a best of 7. I don't know if you knew this, but my baseball team of choice just played a few different series. But you have like the game 4 swings, game 3, game 7. Obviously,
I'm gonna put like a moratorium on Rangers talk on this podcast.
What are we talking about? I just said baseball. I don't know. Here's some of my gear here.
I hear your point, though. I hear your point.
Broken Nathaniel Lowe bobblehead, though. That's I hide the rest of my Rangers accoutrement, but short answer, no. I know your question. I'm just being wacky JP again. I don't think it's a must win because you could still win the last 2. Now, if you win this one, that's the proverbial flag planting you want. Quite candidly, what is it? UTSA 7 in a row. You could have the argument from the UTSA perspective. Nate, our guy, tweeted out yesterday with what one of the players said, hey, I don't like UTSA. And that as social media, the social media does it. Anyway, that's a whole other rant about social media. But Rice has lost 7 in a row to UTSA. There's not a huge rivalry right now, but the proximity makes it a rivalry. So you see, I'm kind of arguing both sides. We just ended political season for now. But I think if Rice wins this game, it's the flag planting, and that ups the rivalry to official rivalry status. Do I make any sense there? Do you understand?
No, it did. And I'll be honest. I thought it was particularly peculiar when the AAC scheduling model came out and they made UTSA Rice a protected rivalry game. I didn't think that made a lot of sense. Rice beat UTSA when they were growing and not yet really a functional football team, and then UTSA won them all from there. I was like, this is not a game that needs to happen. I thought North Texas and Rice should be a game that gets played every year. You already have the built-in Dallas, Houston angst, and then some of the close games that they've played back and forth over those. So that would be my 2 cents. I know they have to redraw schedules for next year. So AAC schedule makers, that's my request. Please drop UTSA, put North Texas on the schedule. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. It maybe not quite must win, but if you're looking for signature wins, I think if you could have gone before the season and circled on the schedule of say, hey man, if I could win this game, like this is the one I really, really want to win, I think you probably would have ranked them Texas, Houston, and then it's probably a coin flip between SMU and UTSA.
Yeah, and knowing what we do now, I'd say UTSA. If I'm being honest, which why wouldn't I, right? Because they're staying. Or I don't know. I could see.
Oh, bad to say.
Now I'm arguing against myself. That dang.
We don't have a trophy. I think that what we're going for here is yeah. We're going back to the coachism cliches that all the games matter and go 1-0 this week. So this is now the most important game by default because it's the next one to play. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think one thing that we can kind of touch on a little bit, Rice banged up across the board. I think in many ways we could see this being one of the best tests that we've seen from this team in quite some time. You got JT Daniels, Bloomgren called him doubtful on the press conference on Tuesday. You had Gabe Taylor get banged up last week. Josh Piercy is working to get his way back. Chris Conte, the linebacker, is down. JoJo Jean at safety missed last week. Just running through the list of, we got spoiled through all of September and October, where the list of, guys we're missing was like one or two off the two deep. And now it's potentially a starting quarterback and a lot of guys. So I think, man, if you can be competitive, you can find a way to win this game with a depleted roster against Frank Harris, who it hasn't been stated yet. Frank Harris is a bad man.
Yeah. Why are we taking this long? That's Andy, but this is not a Frank Harris podcast. This is a Rice podcast, dang it. But yeah.
Open invitation for Frank to, what is he wanted to do broadcasting? We can find him.
We didn't talk to him. We talked to Jeff Traylor, and that's one of the more things I'm proud of, that we assembled that. And I'm so glad we got to partner up and do that at AAC Media Day. But I think I was intimidated, to be honest, because that's Frank Harris over there. No,
he is older than you.
I think so. Yeah. People don't know that. He taught me how to broadcast. So I think, are we talking keys here? Can I squeeze in a couple keys? We can go as long as we want.
That's what I want to close with. Keys to the game.
Low scoring is the way Rice wins this one. Give me a 14-3 or 14-0 start. Again, we break a lot.
I thought you were calling that for final. I'm like, my goodness, if these two teams play a 14-10 game, I will lose my mind.
Score more than the other guys, right? But I think the formula is out there with, we don't know who exactly is going to line up of that list that you gave us. Let's hope JT is on the other side of that doubtful and he can still go, because remember what he did earlier in the season. I know different part of the body, but until I am told not to, he is at the top of my depth chart, because what that guy. I
picture him as the former Mets manager comes back with the mustache on the dugout. Bobby Valentine. That is JT Daniels right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I insert a shameless plug? Been out there a couple times in practice this week, and if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Roos on Patreon. $10 a month get you access to all our practice notes, and we got basketball content and all that stuff. And I say that because I think this week in particular, we will want to be paying attention to who's at practice this week and who might be available. I can't promise, but I think Rice might be getting a couple of those guys back. We will see. We don't know right now at time of recording, but practice notes we'll have out tomorrow. So shameless plug, go subscribe. And hopefully, if nothing else, make yourself feel a little bit better about Rice might not be down to, I got to be honest, I was looking at third and fourth string safeties yesterday, familiarizing myself with, okay, Lloyd McFarquhar and who else is down here on the depth chart, and hoping that you don't have to pull those notes out for your broadcast on Saturday. But that was my aside.
And I have an aside to your aside. We talked special teams on the Mike Bloomgren show this last week, as this video cast, I guess, is also available on the Rice House Insider podcast. It was a story that gave me chills. It was really cool. If y'all haven't gone back and heard the story of Chike Anabogu and what we got into on the show Monday night, 10 out of 10. I know all the content's great. And one of the reasons our shows are different than other campuses and schools is the great student athletes. Have been doing this 12 years. And I'm chills just even thinking about it. What he has done and what his family did to get over here, and first American born in his family, and what he has developed into special teams player up for the Burlsworth Trophy. There's your condensed version of that. But Peyton Stevenson making the position switch and computer science whiz. So that was a great. And we had Pete Alomar, who one time coached in Mexico. I didn't know that about him. But the
head coach in Mexico.
Yeah, head coach in Monterey. And so that is on the Rice House Insider podcast, as all these are. So that gets you kind of a good ramping up to the game. Can't wait.
I freaking love it, man. It's such a joy to be able to cover these athletes, because you get all the run of there's no Rice, it's a bunch of smart guys, but I'm like, yeah, but it's like the most like well-formed, functional 18 and 19 and 20-year-olds that I've interviewed and talked with a lot of college football coaches and a lot of college football players. They're different here, man, in the best way.
Mm-hmm. So my Bobby Valentine story, I met him. He was Rangers manager. I was about 8 years old. I went to a Rangers fan fest and met him. My dad said, maybe I was like 9. I don't know. How old are you when you're like embarrassed to people? And I was embarrassed to talk to Bobby Valentine because he was this idol. So since you brought it up, and to tie it back together there with baseball.
I love it. Land the plane, keys to the game. I don't care who plays quarterback. I don't care what happens with the skill positions. Defense, make a special play. I think if you can get, we had the Gabe Taylor pick 2 weeks ago. Special teams, it was that block. You get 1 or 2 special plays, and I believe in Coach Tui. I believe in this offense. You put anybody under center, and they will find a way to get 20, 30 points. Help them out.
Yeah, and I think the last 2 games against Tulane and SMU, Rice has been doing the chasing. They need to be chased. That's why I said that earlier about getting ahead 10-3, 14-7, and make them come from behind.
40-3, 60-3, 90-3.
Whatever it is, you have to be the one, if we're just saying one key, that gets ahead early. Rice can't try to play catch up for a 3rd straight week.
I love it. That's all for us this week. We'll be back next week. Man, the season's winding down. I guess you only got a couple more of, listening, watching us as we do these preview shows. But that'll be it for this week. We will see you another time. Everyone have a safe trip to San Antonio. Get some tacos, some margaritas. Have a good time. We'll see you next week. Rice Fight
never dies, baby. UTSA is in San Antonio, folks. San Antonio.
What?
Oh, callback. Tampa. Yeah.